From running for her life to inheriting a fortune, this is the story you won't believe is real. It was almost midnight when Kara finally made the decision she'd been terrified to make for years. Her hands shook as she stuffed a few clothes inside an old backpack. The tiny apartment she shared with her husband, Dean, was dark, except for the flickering kitchen light he kept promising to fix. Promises. That's all she ever got from him. Promises and pain. Dean wasn't always cruel. That was the problem. Some days he was the charming man she fell in love with 7 years earlier. Some days he smiled, cooked for her, brought home flowers, talked about dreams and vacations they'd never take. But most days he was the storm she never saw coming. The yelling. The insults. The threats. The manipulation. The way he controlled her every move, every friend, every dollar. He never hit her. At least, not with his hands. But emotional abuse? That kind of pain sits in places no one can see. Tonight was different. Tonight, he'd thrown a glass against the wall, just inches from her head, shattering it into 1,000 sharp pieces. The sound rang in her ears long after Dean stormed out of the apartment. That was the moment something inside her broke, quietly, but permanently. Kara zipped her backpack and whispered to herself. This time. I'm really leaving. Kara slipped out of the apartment and closed the door behind her as carefully as she could. The hallway smelled like stale cigarettes and old carpet, but to her, it smelled like freedom. She didn't have a plan. She didn't have money. She didn't have family to run to. But she had courage, and after years of surviving Dean's cruelty, courage was something she had more of than she realized. She rode the bus until the last stop. The driver gave her a sympathetic look. She looked exhausted, tear-stained, and out of place at that hour. You got somewhere to go? He asked quietly. Kara lied and nodded. Truth was, she didn't. She walked for almost an hour before ending up in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Brookhaven City. The streets were lined with dark houses and trimmed hedges, and the warm glow of porch lights made her feel like she didn't belong. But then she saw it, a small park with a bench tucked under a large oak tree. It wasn't safe. She knew that. But she was too tired to care. Kara curled up on the bench, hugging her backpack like a pillow, and stared up at the sky. I'll figure it out tomorrow, she whispered. Tomorrow. It sounded hopeful, but she had no idea that her life was about to change in a way she could never imagine. One night on the park bench turned into several. Kara did her best to blend in, to look like she was just resting or waiting for someone, but people noticed. Some gave her concerned looks. Others looked away as if ignoring her would erase her existence. She found a public bathroom at a gas station where she washed up every morning. The cashier, a kind woman named Rosa, sometimes slipped her a free sandwich without saying a word. Kindness like that felt like a lifeline. But homelessness has a way of draining hope faster than anything else. Kara kept thinking Dean would eventually find her. She avoided the main area of town and never stayed in one place too long. The fear sat in her chest like a stone. One afternoon, Rosa asked gently. You got anywhere to go, sweetheart? Kara forced a smile. Working on it. But she wasn't. Every day felt harder than the last. On the fourth morning, Kara returned to the same bench, but this time, someone was already sitting there. An older man with silver hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He wore a dark blue coat and held a walking cane. His eyes were sharp, warm, and curious. Looks like you've been claiming my bench, he said softly. Kara froze. I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone. I'm teasing, he chuckled. Sit. I don't bite. Something about him felt safe. So she sat, keeping a respectful distance. You don't look like someone who chooses to sleep outside, he said. Kara hesitated. I didn't choose it. He nodded like he already knew. My name is Mr. Dawson. I'm Kara. They talked for almost an hour. About simple things. Weather. Books. Places they'd been. It was the first normal conversation she'd had in weeks. As she stood to leave, Mr. Dawson looked at her with a gentle but serious expression. If you ever need someone to talk to, he said, I'm usually around. Kara forced a grateful smile but didn't think much of it. Little did she know, that man would change her life forever. That night, it rained hard. Kara crouched under the park's small wooden pavilion, soaking wet and shivering. Her backpack was drenched. Her clothes clung to her skin. Her teeth chattered. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. "This can't be my life," she whispered. "Please, please let something change." As the rain pounded on the roof above her, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: defeat. How much more could one person take? Hours later, when the storm passed, she walked back to the bench and found something unbelievable waiting for her. A clean blanket. A sandwich. A bottle of water. And a note that read, "No one should face the storm alone. D. Mr. Dawson." That small act of kindness made her cry harder than the rain did. The next morning, Kara rushed back to the park, hoping to see Mr. Dawson so she could thank him. But he wasn't there. The next day? Still no sign of him. A whole week passed. Kara assumed he'd moved on with his life. People did that. They helped a little, then disappeared. But she kept the blanket. She held on to the note. They reminded her she wasn't invisible. One morning, she woke up with a terrible headache. Hunger and exhaustion had caught up with her. She felt dizzy as she walked toward the gas station. She never made it. The world tilted. Her vision blurred. Her legs buckled. Everything went dark. When Kara opened her eyes, she was lying in a hospital bed. A nurse checked her vitals. "You collapsed from dehydration and exhaustion," the nurse said gently. "You're going to be okay." Kara looked around, confused. I have no insurance," she whispered. The nurse smiled. "Someone already covered your bill." Kara's heart raced. "Who?" But before the nurse could answer, the door opened. Mr. Dawson walked in. "You scared all of us," he said with a soft smile. "How are you feeling?" Why would you help me?" Kara asked, voice trembling. His answer was simple. "Because you deserve to be helped." Over the next 3 days, Mr. Dawson visited her every afternoon. He brought her books, snacks, and stories that made her laugh harder than she had in months. One evening, as she prepared to be discharged, he said, "Kara, I want to help you get back on your feet. I can arrange a place for you to stay for a while." Kara shook her head immediately. "I can't accept that. You've already done so much." "You're not accepting charity," he said firmly. "You're accepting a chance." Something in his voice, gentle, but serious, made her pause. "I promise you," he added, "one day you'll understand." She didn't know what that meant, but she finally nodded. "Okay." Mr. Dawson arranged for her to stay in a small guesthouse he owned behind his home. It was modest but clean: a bed, a warm shower, fresh sheets. Kara nearly cried when she saw it. For the first time in weeks, she slept without fear. She found a part-time job at a local bakery, saving as much as she could. Every morning she walked past the big house to thank Mr. Dawson for everything, and he always smiled and said, "I just opened the door. You're the one walking through it." Kara grew stronger. More confident. More alive. But one afternoon, everything changed. Mr. Dawson didn't come out to sit on the porch like he always did. He didn't respond when she knocked. She found out the next morning. He had passed away peacefully in his sleep. Kara sat on the porch steps, tears streaming down her face. She had lost the one person who saw her when she was invisible. But she had no idea, he wasn't done helping her. 3 days later, a black sedan pulled up to the guesthouse. A sharply dressed woman stepped out holding a briefcase. "Are you Kara Williams?" she asked. "Yes. My name is Elizabeth Ward. I'm Mr. Dawson's attorney. He left instructions to meet with you immediately." Kara's eyebrows knitted together. "Instructions, for me?" "Yes." The lawyer gestured. "Please come with me." Confused and anxious, Kara followed her into the main house. Inside the living room sat several people, distant relatives, neighbors, business associates. The lawyer opened her briefcase and began reading Mr. Dawson's will aloud. He had left money to charities, relatives, friends. But then Elizabeth continued. "And finally, to Kara Williams, I leave the remainder of my estate, including assets, properties, and financial accounts totaling approximately $50 million. The room exploded. What? Who is she? This must be a mistake. Kara's jaw dropped. Her heart hammered in her chest. I don't understand, she whispered. Elizabeth handed her a sealed letter. He wrote this for you. Kara's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note from Mr. Dawson. You reminded me of my daughter, who I lost years ago. She was kind. Brave. Gentle. Just like you. You gave me joy in my last days, Kara. You gave me companionship when I had none. And you gave me hope. This is not payment. This is love. Build a life you're proud of. Arthur Dawson. Kara covered her mouth as fresh tears streamed down her face. $50 million. But the money wasn't what made her cry. It was the line. Build a life you're proud of. The money changed her circumstances, but it didn't change her heart. Kara moved into a small apartment, not a mansion. She donated a portion of the money to shelters supporting victims of abuse. She created a foundation under Mr. Dawson's name, offering housing and job support to women escaping dangerous homes. And she made sure every person who walked into those shelters heard one thing. You deserve safety. You deserve kindness. And you deserve a new beginning. One afternoon, as she stood outside the first shelter she helped build, she whispered. Thank you, Arthur. Her life had been filled with storms. Broken pieces. Fear. Loneliness. But now? Now it was filled with hope. And it all began on a park bench. This isn't a story about money. It's a story about survival, faith, second chances, and the kind of miracle that only seems to happen in movies, until it happens to someone in real life. If someone had told Kara Williams that her entire life would fall apart before it came back together, she would have laughed. Not because her life was perfect, far from it, but because she never believed things could change so dramatically, so suddenly, and so unbelievably. And yet, that's exactly what happened.